Hello, everyone. Good morning from USA. Today, I'm honored. I have a very special guest, someone that I have always held in very high esteem because of his contribution towards the IMG community. He was president of Aga Khan University American Association here, Equiana. He was the former program director of Family Medicine Residency at WellSpan, where he did his residency. He was a chief resident. He was a clerkship director and then program director for several years. Most recently, he has assumed the role of professor and academic chair of Creighton University in Arizona, a family medicine residency program. Uh, Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Waheed. Thank you, Dr. Waheed, for joining us on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Morning.
I appreciate you inviting me to your forum, and happy to be here. Um, uh, Basically, most of my career, all of my career, here in the U.S. has been out there in Central PA. The 15 and a half, 16 years that I've been around here, including my residency. And later work. There is a small community hospital called Good Samaritan Hospital, which has been now WellSpan Good Samaritan Hospital. That's where I did my residency. It was an affiliate, actually part of Penn State back when I was resident. And so I did residency, basically Penn State Good Samaritan residency program, and then became chief resident and then was core faculty. And I think at some point, Penn State and Good Samaritan, they parted their ways. And so it became WellSpan Good Samaritan Hospital. And so I was there at Penn State for a bit, basically in different roles, including the creation of the Hershey Medical Center residency program of the Penn State. So I was one of the founding faculty actually in there because I had just graduated from Penn State program, was core faculty, and then I moved basically to WellSpan as residency program director in 2018 and was there till like the January 8th of this year. And we still were affiliate as WellSpan Good Samaritan Hospital, one of the affiliates with Penn State Medical School, as well as Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. And so my program there had first dual accreditation, AOA and ACGME.
Okay.
And then later on, we had ACGME accreditation with osteopathic recognition. So we had both affiliates basically. And just some turn of events. Life brought us here in Arizona, and it's great. Creighton University here in Arizona has a full medical school and a physician assistant studies school and a few other medical programs. And it works with two clinical partners, basically, the Dignity Health and Valley Wise Health. And we have two residency programs, one which is kind of mainly located at Valley Wise Health, but it's kind of a shared program of the department. But then one is located and administered completely by Dignity Health, and that program is under complete purview of my department.
Okay.
And so I'm the academic chair, and so we have family medicine clerkship, and we have obviously the acting internship from medical school and the residency program. We are also looking to expand our academic footprint in many ways. And from clinical standpoint, our department is basically 30 to 40 physicians and advanced practice practitioners. And so I oversee that clinical enterprise in Phoenix, Gilbert, Chandler, and Queen Creek, all of the Arizona.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. So I'll go straight away to the question. So your residency program, which you oversee, does it sponsor visa to IMGs?
So it's interesting. It seems that the fully Creighton sponsored program in downtown Phoenix, what used to be Dignity Health St. Joseph program, and now is a Creighton program, shared by Dignity Health, and mostly it is located within Valley Vice Health. They do sponsor visa. They have a long-standing history. However, the current program in Gilbert, Arizona, which is under my department's complete purview, which is Dignity Health East Valley Family Medicine Residency Program. It's a new program. We just recruited our second residency batch.
Okay.
And so we don't have the ability to sponsor visa as of yet, but
Okay.
hopefully in future.
Okay, I understand. I would ask you, as a family medicine as a specialty, what are your views? How has it progressed in terms of IMGs?
So family medicine is basically very different specialty from many other specialties. It revolves around four pillars, but I'll just mention two. One is comprehensive care, and second is continuity of care.
Mm.
And so these are two basic, sort of like if you were to define the specialty, these two paradigms would define the specialty really well. And so based upon this, what happens is it gives you the broadest care provision. So it is the broadest specialty that you can think of. And then continuity of care gives you a care model, what we call incremental care over time. So saving lives over time, basically. Sometimes people in medicine will say save lives, one at a time, but this is incremental over time. And so it's different from a lot of the other countries which source international medical graduates to US. And if you look at the top, 5 countries, without going into any kind of different order, but you would see basically the Caribbean graduates, U.S. origin people, who go to Caribbean for medical school and come back, and then you have India, you have Pakistan, you have Philippines, and you have China.
Yes, absolutely.
Basically, this is like the biggest one. And over the past 5-7 years now, there's neighboring countries like Mexico and South America and some African countries kind of contributing as well. So if you look at the landscape of most of South Asian countries from where the medical graduates come in, and African countries from where the international medical graduates come in, the provision of primary care is very different model than the specialty of family medicine. Majority of the place, let's take an example of Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Philippines. We run on what we call general practice model.
Yeah,
right?
GP, yeah.
So you graduate from medical school, you go in and you do some sort of a rotating internship of 1 year, and which is mostly hospital-based, right? And so you spend, like most of your time is spent in the hospital. And then you come out and you're responsible for taking care of patients in the ambulatory environment in outpatient. Completely counterintuitive, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so most of the stuff that you see in internship, you do slightly rather very different from it. And so family medicine as a specialty has started to evolve in certain places, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, like in India, Khan University in Pakistan, Ziauddin University in Pakistan, Fatima Memorial Hospital system in Pakistan. So these are some of the places where they've started family medicine residency and the specialty of family medicine. So like I'll give you an example. Several years ago, when I was a fourth-year medical student, I had always been interested in primary care and family medicine. So my friend Fawad Aslam, who's a rheumatologist here at Mayo Clinic in Arizona, he and we wrote basically a letter to the editor to Journal of Pakistan Medical Association. And it was pretty detailed, like, 600,000 words that talks about general practice to family medicine, time to change. And it's been now 20 years almost. And I see some change. Sorry, I'm going on a very different tangent.
No, that's very important.
Contrast, that family medicine, many a times the graduates coming from there, they don't have a real sense of what this specialty is. They think about equivalent of general practice, which, it's like, you see a chair, right? And if it has arms, any chair that you're going to imagine in your schema formation, you're going to think about something with the arm. You're going to have chair without the arm. You're going to have chair with so schema for a lot of the people for family medicine is general practice, out from their countries. Here, it's very different. So traditionally, even though family medicine specialty here started evolving in the 1970s, right? 60s and 70s, I think it was 68 or 71 when they truly declared it as separate specialty. And US changed from general practice model to actually family medicine as specialty. And American Board of Medical Specialties announced American Board of Family Medicine as testing. And then, as slowly the liaison committee, which transformed into ACGME, started accrediting family medicine residency program. There were 14 regional family medicine residency programs. And interestingly enough, the St. Joe's program that I was talking about here in Phoenix was one of the 14 regional.
Oh, wow.
And WellSpan York Hospital program was one of the regionals. And in the history of family medicine in the US, the first ever Department of Family Medicine in a medical school was Penn State. So I had the privilege to actually train in that department and serve in that department. And so, it's just most of the family medicine academic organizations, even organized medicine like American Academy of Family Physicians, Society of Teachers of Family Medicine, ADFM, Association Department of Family Medicine, Association of Family Medicine Residency Directors, they're slightly, either they're at their 50-year mark or they're slightly over 50-year mark.
Okay.
So, and so family medicine residency programs over time, they've increased in number. And if you look at the trend, it's a curve like this. And over the past 5 years, there's been a large number of new programs. Some of that influx is coming from the previously AOA accredited program becoming ACGME, but there have been a lot of new GME programs too, after the Affordable Care Act and how the flow of the whole US healthcare system, delivery system, has gone in. There's a lot more focus on primary care. And so health systems are adding family medicine residency programs quite in droves. And so back in the day, the demand and supply, if you were to talk about 30 years ago, was kind of balanced for the number of positions and number of graduates from US who wanted to go into family medicine. And so, and IMGs, international medical graduates, there was a little bit of reluctance sometimes taking them just because they're understanding and not having enough exposure and, sort of prestige as well. Like, a lot of international medical graduates, like who end up in the US, believe me or not, they're the cream of the crops from their classes back from their home countries. And so many times they think about subspecialty, and family medicine is all about primary care. So traditionally, a fraction of IMGs were, into family medicine. And then there was a time when there was the number of positions outgrew the interest of US graduates going into family medicine. So there were a large number of international graduates started going into. And the past 5 years, it has sort of gotten in a static mode, because although the number of residency programs have increased, the number of DO schools have increased. So the DO graduates, if you look at the osteopathic medical schools, they are really primary care focused many a times. And they're sort of, even the philosophy is biopsychosocial, spiritual care, and comprehensive care. So a number of the graduates from osteopathic schools from each class, they end up into primary care specialties, including family medicine. And so programs that non-sponsor visa, or even those sponsor visa, they get, if you look at classifying the market, whether fair or not, the local LCME school graduates, they're the top priority for the majority programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the osteopathic graduates, and then the international graduates.
Yeah. So, Dr. Waheed, you make very, very good points. So, and my understanding when I was doing residency at University of North Dakota and now working here, so students I have had honor of working with students. So most of them, when I started these rotations back in 2015, 16, when I used to interact with them during even my observerships, most of the AMGs, family medicine was like their specialty of choice. Over the past 8, 10 years, what I have seen is now they are moving a little bit away from that. Folks who are very interested in doing like fellowships, they would prefer like internal medicine. Now there has been an increasing interest in psychiatry, pathology, and neurology. What have you noticed, especially in terms of AMGs, MDs, and DOs?
Yeah, I think you're correct. LCME graduates going into family medicine, like this year's match, for example,
Mhm.
AFP celebrated the largest match, right? They
Mhm.
were very happy that we had the largest match ever in the history.
Mhm.
But then if you look at the data, the bottom line is pretty much clear that if you look at the total number of positions
Mhm.
offered into the match for of family medicine,
Mhm.
total number of graduates of medical schools from LCME, if you look at the fraction and apply it,
Mhm.
actually the lower fraction has gone into family
Mhm.
medicine. Just because the number of students graduates have increased both in
Yeah.
LCME and DO, and
Mhm.
number of positions have increased. It looks like we are a largest family medicine match, but
Mhm.
more international, more fraction of international graduates actually ended up in family
Yes.
medicine than
Mhm.
historically it has
Okay.
been.
Okay.
And there are several reasons, like, people talk about, hidden curriculum, people talk about the cost of medical education here
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
medical schools. And also over time, I think, in South Asia, as I said, the concept of family medicine is kind of
Yes, absolutely.
appearing up there as well. And then I think over time, some of our organization kind of advocating for family medicine
Mhm.
among the international community, international medical graduate community, has also kind of given them a perspective that's a great specialty. And people come a little bit more prepared now, like, in terms of like what the specialty is,
Mhm.
what they want to get in.
Mhm.
And there are genuine people who really want to be
Yeah.
primary care
Yeah,
physicians.
and I think what I have also noticed over the past several years, previously, like let's say 5, 6 years before, that's my observation, and maybe it's not that correct, that most of the family medicine residency programs, they did not used to sponsor a work visa like J1 or H1. But over the past 5, 6 years, more and more programs have been sponsoring, because that is also one of the biggest limiting factors for IMGs. Because if a program is not sponsoring visa, most of the non-US, I mean, all of the non-US IMGs, whether even some of them are Caribbean from Canada and other countries, they would not be able to apply to those programs. And of course, they will not match there because the visa has been an issue. But now more programs are sponsoring visa, family medicine programs.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think part of that is several years ago, ECFMG took the responsibility of being the actual sponsor for
Yes.
the J1 visa, right? And the programs like sort of onus of the paperwork and all of that has
Yeah,
kind of decreased, and so it's
absolutely. Yes.
easier. Now
Yes.
the quagmire of the conundrum of sponsoring J1 or taking a J1
Mhm.
resident for a number of residency programs who want to sponsor visa and who want to get international graduates is that the primary reason why they want family medicine residency programs is to basically train their own. They want to train
Yeah.
the residents who the graduates would stick around and be part
Yeah.
of their primary care base. And so
Mhm.
if you have J1 and they're not part of the primary care shortage area,
Mhm.
then they lose the graduate and they're like,
Yeah.
what's the use? We don't have the capability of H1B.
Mhm.
Why would we go on the route of J1, train them and lose them, right? And
Absolutely.
so but I think that has also been debunked in some ways. Graduates still end up, kind of practicing in the same geographic region, if
Mhm.
not in the same area. And then afterwards, like, I'll give you example of Good Sam Hospital where I was.
Mhm.
The current program director actually, when I left, Dr. Cambodge became program director, like, without disclosing her personal history. she was 2 years ahead of me in residency. So we were kind of residents at the same time. And then she served as, kind of core faculty with me. So she left Pennsylvania to some other state, but she came back. And then she became faculty with me and then was associate PD and just became program director. So there is some data that indicates that the graduates tend to come back even if you don't sponsor. But, people look at, some immediate outcomes and they want people to stick around.
So now I would wear a hat of an applicant and would request you to wear your program director, chair leadership hat. So some people have sent me questions. I have some question in my mind. So I would start asking you some of those questions so that the audience may have an idea if they're applying to family medicine, what things they should have in their mind. So when your department or you were reviewing applications or you do that for the interview, especially in terms of IMGs, how much significance is for scores, USMLE scores?
So I'll start from myself putting into, when I was applicant and, if I were an applicant, what I would do. First thing, I want to be very clear whether I want to do family medicine or not. Family medicine is a specialty, which is primary care. As I said before, people will talk about sitting, fellowship opportunities within family medicine. There are several. You can create your niche and practice a smaller scope, but really that's not the norm. The norm is that you come into family medicine to be a primary care physician. If in any nook and corner in your mind, you think that you want to be a cardiologist or a gastroenterologist, oncologist, hematologist, or any kind of specialty and niche, question yourself, applying to family medicine. Family medicine specialty as a whole, 99.9% of the program directors and faculty who are into recruitment of residents, they consider interest and commitment to family medicine as like basically the most primary thing and a no-go area. If there is any doubt that this person is not committed to family medicine, they would rather not, because it can be a stressful, at times, stressful specialty and broader. And sometimes when you're training, even there are esteem issues. So you got to be very, very comfortable in your skin, basically. Training as a family medicine resident and then afterwards practicing as a family physician. So just be very genuine in that. You don't want to be miserable like training and then afterwards, rest of your life. So think about that. And so once you have made that decision, you think that, I would be happy doing this, broad scope, and people will talk about lifestyle. So reasons why people go in, they'll talk about lifestyle. It's a great lifestyle. Well, let me just tell you, residency is residency, no matter which specialty. In family medicine, despite not having as much of an intense call situation that you might have with other specialties, it has its own challenges, transitions, every rotation, you're meeting with new people, brand new people, sometimes new practices from one specialty to another, to another, to another. So just think about if you really want to do it. If you really want to do it, it's great specialty. And once you do it, then what are the things that you need to work on? So let's talk about the USMLE scores. USMLE step 1 is gone, right? So it's basically all pass and fail. And so that used to be a discriminator, basically in a lot of the specialties, including family medicine. Majority of the programs would have some sort of a random cutoff. I call it random because it is random. And now that step 2 is serving that for majority of the programs. Now, family medicine residency programs, a lot of them or most of them tend to be more comprehensive application review programs than just one. But nowadays the number of applications is so much that even though they are comprehensive, they will put them in tiers. That's what I did in my program. We received, I was involved in even this recruitment season in WellSpan Good Sam program, and we received 1,800 plus applications.
Wow.
Think about it, 1,800 plus applications. Even if you wanted to do comprehensive reviews, you can't invite everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Who is eligible. So we had tiers basically: first tier, second tier, third tier, right? And then not everyone in first tier got invited just because we were doing comprehensive reviews. And second tier, and then once we were done with like our interview spots, we may not have had the capability or capacity to go to third tier. So despite family medicine residency programs doing comprehensive reviews and application reviews, you still have the step 2 score. You got to have a good score. And I wouldn't say, you got to have like the most stellar score, but I would say, get close to, sort of the 228, 230 mark.
Okay.
Majority programs are around there. That's like the average of international graduate score in step 2 currently.
Okay.
If you're above that 228, 230 mark, you have better chances to may fall in the tier 1 of majority of the programs, and then they will review it.
Okay, so score is one, and you say that most of them, if they have cutoff, it's random, but around 225 to 230.
Yeah, I think that's a good guess for majority of the program, because it is a good guess if you ask me.
Yeah. Now, if someone has high scores, like a lot of people these days have like 250s and 60s, would that be something that you would consider like if that person has really high score, but not the other aspects that you are looking for, would you give that person some edge with extraordinary high score?
Majority of the family medicine residency program, once you are in comprehensive review, once you've got to made it to the table of application review, score is not one of the biggest determinant anymore.
Okay, that's very important. Okay.
Now, what do you offer as a package? What package do you offer as an applicant?
All right.
In majority of the programs now. In my program, in WellSpan, previous program, we had basically a matrix approach. We had basically rubrics for scoring the application, including your personal statement, letters of recommendation, dean's letter, your medical school scores, and finally USMLE scores, your research, your leadership ability. And the total score was 100. So we scored the application. And so all of this made basically 60% of the 100, right? And then 40 came from your interactions with our program. That's your direct one-on-one interviews with program director, your faculty, residents, and resident interactions, basically in dinner or whatever. Right? And so and our ranking was literally that score.
Okay, so basically you had a system where the 60% of the pre-interview stuff would be included in the rank order list, and then 40% is all about the interview with you, with other faculty members, dinner, and the program administration and residents.
Correct.
Okay, so in selecting people for interview, how much US experience in family medicine is important for IMGs? Because, as IMGs, we have to, sometimes people would say they have to have US clinical experience, whether it's hands-on, externship, electives, or even observership. How important is that for you in the selection process for interviews?
Yeah, let me address that first with a principal statement. Principal statement or conceptual foundation of that is very important to the programs. And that is, does this person know what this person is getting into? Again, going back to the history of family medicine, as I was saying, this person is coming where the medical school that person trained may not have had a family medicine department and a family medicine rotation and no exposure. So does this person understand, or is just trying to get a foot in the system?
Yeah.
Right. And so that comes from your exposure to family medicine within the US, whether that's an elective, or whether that's sort of externship or some other research, some hands-on, some interactions with the system. And then even in the interviews, they would ask you questions. At least in my program, there's been history. We would ask questions to judge the understanding of the person of US healthcare system. We look at the personal statement. Actually, our scoring rubric of the personal statement was, does this indicate this person knowing the specialty, knowledge
Oh,
of the specialty,
wow.
and is that knowledge of the specialty personalized, like, sort of like how that person fits into that. So, that's the principal statement. Now, we didn't have any random cutoff saying, you must have 3 months of experience, you must have 1 month of
Okay.
experience. I've had residents match in my program with zero actual on-ground experience, but they really understood what the specialty was.
Okay.
They didn't have any externship elective or anything, but they really understood from their interaction in a different way, or reading materials, or reading, specialty literature, and they
Okay.
demonstrated, and we're like, okay, this person is a good fit, and
Okay.
they were a good fit.
Okay, now the other question is, when we are talking about US experience, traditionally some people like me who don't know family medicine much would say that the letter of recommendation, they could be from, because family medicine, as you said, combination of OB, even psych, some surgery, some ER. So if an applicant is attaching letter, let's say from one letter from psych, one from maybe OB, ER, and not specifically from a family medicine board certified person, would those letter be helpful?
So now we're getting into the letter of recommendation. So we had a rubric for scoring letter of recommendation as well. And I think primarily it was like, it's not like who is writing the letter,
Hmm.
what is written in the letter.
Okay, okay.
So we did need to establish like sort of credibility of the letter writer as
Mhm.
well. But that wasn't like the real that wasn't everything. That was part of it. And
Okay,
so the best is you get letters of recommendations from family physicians.
okay.
Okay. And so if you are from a medical school where there was no department of family medicine, there would be a department of community medicine. There
Yes.
might be a department of internal medicine with a section of general internal medicine
Yeah.
who do outpatient work or
Mhm.
inpatient work, and
Mhm.
combinations.
Mhm.
Get it from them, and then have a talk with them
Mhm.
before you ask them to write a letter,
Mhm.
and explain what you're getting into.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, like, there are like bright faculty out there
Yes.
in all the countries, in majority of the medical schools, who understand the specialty of family medicine.
Mhm.
There's an organization called WONCA, a World Organization of WN, I can't pronounce
Okay.
get to the abbreviation, but WONCA is like
Mhm.
basically an organization, a worldwide organization that represents the family medicine and general practice organization of all the countries.
Mhm.
Okay, so AAFP, American Academy of Family Physicians, is a member of WONCA, and so
Okay.
they have direct membership as well. But so AAFP, you can see, one of the partners, the sponsors of the WONCA. So find a person who may be member of WONCA who would
Okay.
understand what
Mhm.
family medicine is all over the world,
Okay.
in your medical school, and that might be the best person. If that's not, you don't have anybody in there, then go have a talk with the person who knows you well, your clinical abilities, your interests, and say, I'm applying to family medicine, and this is what I'm looking for, and ask them to recommend you for family medicine.
Okay.
Because if
Interesting.
I see an internal medicine physician has blank recommendation, or says recommended for internal medicine, that will become, okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So I looked. So I think it's the World Organization of Medical Family Doctors, which was established in 1972. Yeah. Well, thanks
Correct.
for
Yeah.
mentioning, because that is very important. And I think recently CPSP in Pakistan has also like started an MCPS, 2-year MCPS in family medicine. So you are absolutely right. More and more countries are actually looking into establishing formal training and informal training.
Actually, it has FCPS too. MCPS started in 2004 or 2003,
Okay.
and
Okay.
Dr. Cynthia Huck, who is the chair of UCLA or UCSF, Family
Okay.
Medicine Department, she was one of the advisor consultants to the Department of Community Health Sciences at Aga Khan University to establish the first residency program in family medicine in Pakistan. And
Okay.
so that led to MCPS and then FCPS. One of the first FCPS graduates, Dr. Nasser Shah, He chaired the Department of Family Medicine at Fatma Memorial Hospital in Lahore. Like he's
Interesting.
one of the major players like out
Okay.
there. If you're a graduate, somewhere from Lahore, like you go visit that department and interact
Absolutely.
with them and figure out, if you can get into US to get US clinical experience, work with them. If you
Yeah.
are, in Karachi, go, try to see if you can learn something from AKU Department of Family Medicine or Ziauddin, or I think Bakai also has one. And then there are several other places. The same
Mhm.
thing in India or other
Okay.
countries. There are, places where you can get that
Okay.
experience.
And that was my next question. So if people don't have US visa, they cannot come here. So if let's say they work in Lahore with the Fatma Memorial, and then in Aga Khan and in Ziauddin, if they have good letters written from their home country, would they be as important, or they would make a similar impact in your opinion, to be considered for interview?
I think a credible person writing a letter indicating, good interaction and testifying to the skills and
Mhm.
attitudes and competencies towards family medicine of a graduate, regardless of whether that person is practicing here in the US or elsewhere. That is considered by majority of the people,
Okay.
majority of the programs.
Okay.
And I can attest to, especially to, the WellSpan program or Penn State programs, so they did pay attention to that.
Okay. Now, the other question a lot of people ask is significance of step three. If someone IMG has cleared step three prior to applying, in your opinion, is it a plus?
Yes and no. If you're going for J1 visa, it may not be of a big difference, but if you're going for H1B, you
Mhm.
would need it. That's one thing.
Mhm.
Second is if you're a fresh graduate, I may not like kind
Mhm.
of expect if you just graduated in 24 and you're applying to 25 match, I may not expect it.
Mhm.
But if you graduated, 2, 3 years ago and
Mhm.
you've done with USMLE rest of the steps, then I'm going to question, like, if you've done an internship or you've done training
Mhm.
in your home country, then yeah, I mean, it would play. So it's case by case. Again, as I said, once you kind of make the cutoff to get
Mhm.
into application review for interview,
Mhm.
then it's what do you offer as a package,
Okay.
and I'm going to pay attention to this, like
Okay.
individual basis. But it does help. It
Okay.
does help overall. Some of the programs, they were like, oh, okay, at least one thing is out of the way,
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's what I have noticed, that they would say that now that person does not have to take it during the intern year. So that is
Yeah.
also.
And so one of my former, graduates of WellSpan program and also faculty and also associate PD, who's program director now in California
Mhm.
of a family medicine residency program, Dr. Naushirwan Khan. I just had a chat with him recently, and he told me that in his program for IMGs, he really wants them to be done.
Oh, step
So
three.
yeah, so there are
Okay.
programs like that.
Okay.
He's like, my program is intense. We have a lot of other stuff to do, and
Sure.
so I want them to have that out of the way.
Okay. Now, you have mentioned a little bit about year of graduation. Is, in your opinion, and in the practical world, a cutoff, like if someone, let's say, is out of med school 5, 6 years or even more, how would you approach that application?
Yeah, again, majority of the programs would have 3 to 5 year cutoff,
Mhm.
and so majority of the applicants, or all applicants after that cutoff, who they won't make it to the table to get reviewed.
Okay.
So you're out of the game right there. So
Okay.
unless and until there are programs who might think about making an exception if from reliable sources, if they knew the reason why this happened. Like for example, if someone was training in their home country, right,
Yeah.
and they did a full specialty training, they were
Mhm.
practicing physicians, and a change in life happened,
Mhm.
and their primary mode of moving to US is not to come and get training. Their primary mode is something else. Someone got married or
Mhm.
something happened, and they're immigrated. And
Mhm.
so majority of the time, those those candidates don't even need visa. They have other reasons for immigration, right? So they would want to make exception for those people, or for whatever reason, someone went in to do PhD, right? So it's rare, PhD people coming to family medicine, but there are some, or went to masters and then they want to come in. So those people, some program will want to make an exception for them.
Okay. You have mentioned many times personal statement. How impactful is personal statement to be selected for the interview?
Personal statement fills a lot of the holes and a
Mhm.
lot of the bills, because that's what speaks to, as I said before, commitment to family medicine is one of the major things, determinants and major things at the back of mind of recruitment committees and program directors in family medicine. So personal statement fills those holes. If I'm looking for, this person doesn't have exposure to US clinical environment, does this person understand what the specialty of family medicine in the US is, then sort of I might look at the personal statement to judge that, right? Or letters of recommendation. And then I can't emphasize enough, personal statement must be personal.
Yes.
So, I sometimes see people writing great essays and they describe the specialty, but no personal connection. Yes, you checked the box for one, you demonstrated what specialty of family medicine is, but how do you gain energy out of it? How do you see your fitting? Can you describe an event, a patient, any interaction, anything significant in life where you draw that connection with the specialty and your understanding of the specialty, and how you drew an energy out of doing the family medicine care?
And a lot of time when people ask me, what I say is, you just look at the word personal statement. So it should be personal and it should make a statement.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it.
Yeah. You have mentioned about research. Now, how important you would consider research experience in selecting people for interview now? And the second part of the question is, does it need to be family medicine specific research, or like similar in psych, in OB, in internal medicine would also count?
Yeah, again, I will emphasize that once you kind of made it to application review pool and you're getting reviewed, majority program will do comprehensive review, right? And in comprehensive review, they're looking for a variety of experiences, right? That would make you successful in their family medicine residency training program. If you had family medicine oriented, primary care oriented research, or health systems oriented research, understanding of business, that would demonstrate basically that you understand the specialty, you've done that work, and then you're committed, you have interest, right? All of those things. And then research in general itself indicates to me a person's analytic ability, project management, and also sort of ability to juggle many things in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm pretty sure unless you had a paid research job, that's not the only thing you're doing. You're
Yeah,
in medical school, you're doing all of the medical school work, and
yeah.
research is additional, or you're training and research is additional. And residency is like that, especially family medicine residency. When you're training, you have a lot of balls in the air,
Oh,
and
yeah.
your hands are full. So that demonstrates, person's ability, and it's precisely it's a predictor for their success in residency programs.
Okay.
So measurement of how much research is very controversial, and every different program looks at different. Sometimes some programs will look at it, they've done some work, and that's great. We had a rubric again for peer-reviewed publications versus presentations versus working paid or grant funded stuff, and then that rubric we scored, and that went into part of the 100 numbers that we had.
Now, Dr. Abdul Waheed, so another question a lot of people ask, of course, the new thing which we are seeing, signaling. So in your opinion, how important is signaling in terms of getting selected for interview?
So I don't have data on signaling yet, but what came out like granular data, but what came out in the report, immediate report from NRMP and
Mm.
or maybe it was AMA survey. I can't recall exactly where I read this, but majority programs actually considered the candidates who signaled them in their first year in first go. And we did that too in our program.
Okay.
We used a combination of their, yeah, those who signaled us,
Mm.
kind of, especially program specific signal to review them on priority. Again, we used all of the criteria that I said
Mm.
before, but they got on the table for review.
Okay.
So signaling is important.
Okay. Now, a lot of people prior to signaling what they call like a letter of interest, where they would send like brief emails to program coordinators, even directors about mentioning their interest to the program. With the advent of signaling, do you think that those emails have any significance anymore?
Um, I think they can get annoying at times.
Okay.
Because if don't, don't take me in any different way than intended, but recruitment season is busy and residency
Oh, yeah.
program director jobs are busy. If
Absolutely.
you had to send, don't send it more than once.
I understand. Okay. Makes a
So
lot of
because
sense.
that, just think about that person's workload, like 1800 plus
Yeah.
applications, all of the other stuff going on,
Yep.
and winter season and can be tough in other
No,
places. So
absolutely.
sending it more than once is a no-go.
Okay. Absolutely.
Sending it once, yes, it used to play a role. It may, randomly make someone think about you.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I literally don't know how in the environment when you have the ability to actually signal, you signal different programs and you sending like intent to
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
They
Makes
may
sense.
not. If you did signal some program, then you may send a very brief
Oh,
three-liner
okay.
and say I've signaled, and
Makes
they may,
sense.
pay attention and may say, if you live in that area or you have a close connection, just like one or two liner, and
Okay.
please review my application and, further details in my person statement or something like that. Don't have a large letter of intent.
Mm.
You may attach it in the email,
Okay.
but like in the body of the email, don't make it long because
Okay.
long email automatically delete.
I understand. Master in public health, whether it's done in US or outside US, is that something you would consider advantageous for IMGs for family medicine?
Yeah, here I won't speak for all the programs, but in my program, I used to consider that, like, again, ability to demonstrate extra skills,
Mhm.
and sort of they would have learned like analytical reasoning at a different level, some academic skills, data skills, and my program was very data driven, and so there are a number of programs like that. So look at those programs. If you have done that degree, then that would work in your favor, but it would not go in negative anyways. It
Okay.
will always be a plus and positive regardless of where you did it. It would be a positive.
Okay. Now you have interviewed someone, you have a list, let's say you have 10 spots and you have interviewed 80 people. You had that rubric where 60% was their scores, their personal statement and all that. And you said 40% is primarily interaction and interview. Traditionally, a lot of people would say that there are some specialties like psychiatry that put a lot of emphasis on interview, and there are some like perhaps surgical or internal medicine where they would not like pay that much attention to the interview itself, like merely a way to like screen red flags. What is the significance of interview in family medicine?
Interview is very important in
Okay.
family medicine. In some programs, that becomes a sole determinant
Oh,
because you made the review of your application already, and so they want, in other terms, once you make it to the interview, they want it. They want you to be
mhm.
in the program. You are considered, unless they just don't like you in the interview. So interview is extremely important for family medicine residency programs.
Okay. Uh, the this the we are just getting to the end of it. So there are last few questions. Now, if someone has interviewed, how would you consider them if they are sending you a brief thank you note, like an email? Would that be a positive?
I think it's always a good idea to, connect with people who interviewed you. I would actually encourage people, if you really like the program and you want to get in there, then express that to them and make it specific, not like a blanket statement. Make it specific to what they talk to you, and it will have good impact.
Okay. Now, Dr. Waheed, I would like to thank you a lot again, taking out time on a Sunday morning. I would request you for all the people who are listening to this and anyone who will be applying to family medicine residency, especially the IMGs, what would be your concluding remarks, any recommendation, suggestion that you want to give it to them?
Yeah, again, I would say three things. One, be clear what you want to do in your life, because once you get into residency, residency is hard, no matter which specialty and where you do it. You have to put in a lot of hours, and so you want to choose it wisely, like what you want to do and what your desire is. Number two is be very deliberate in putting up application, and number three is work hard and pay attention to your interview season, and adjust yourself.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dr. Waheed.